All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Very excited about today's show. I'm actually going to be showcasing a symphony that I created. That's a permutation from Garen Phillips' creation that I talked about last episode, Algos with Garen. Before I get into that, though, just want to mention a couple things. I like to do this just to showcase the books I'm reading. Specifically when it deals with financial education. Here's a book now, Just Keep Buying, Nick Majuli. Very much enjoying it so far. And another little side note, doesn't have much to do with investing. You can see behind me the two pieces of art right there and there, the pepper paintings. I have a big pepper garden here, and I just came out from harvesting. Let me get a good angle here for you guys. So you can see the beautiful colors. Beautiful Jimmy Nardello sweet Italian peppers. A couple more over here. And I actually have been selling these, and maybe I'll do a video about that on its own. Yeah, look at this here. Look at that. Glistening. I've actually been selling the pepper plants on Etsy, and I've done quite well with it. So maybe, again, I'll do a video about that. But let's get to the topic at hand, multiplying money. So I have Composer up here. You can see my account here about 110,000, then about 900 today. I really encourage you guys to watch the last video I did, maybe before watching this. But in the last video, I came across this guy, Garen Phillips, very successful YouTuber, just started a new channel, Algos with Garen. I guess he was introduced to Composer recently, and he created a really cool symphony and alluded to creating some others. So in this video here, this is his video. I'm going to pull him up here. And he talks about
how the stock market and equities and commodities move and how money flows. I will leave a link below for this strategy for you to check it out and tinker with it and mess with it and see if you can do it better. And in fact, I actually can.
So there you go. He said, I'll leave it below for you to tinker with it and mess with it to see if you can do better. So I actually allocated $1,000 to his original strategy. And but as I was driving home from the gym the other day, he has SPY and DBC, and I'll pull it up here so you can see what I'm saying exactly. So let's pull up his here. So this is his version, and I don't know if it's Dippy Cutie, Dippy Quickie, but maybe he can say the proper pronunciation. But yeah, you see here, going back, we went back to January 2nd, 2012 to now. It has a 39.9% annualized return. So 10,000 turns into 330,000. So as I'm looking at it here, you see at the bottom here, the else goes to weight equal, and then it says sort 300-day cumulative return, select top one. It's SPY DBC. Sort 400-day cumulative return, select top one, and it just repeats it 500, 600, 200. So I guess, yeah, 300, 400, 500, 600, 200. And so I thought to myself, well, what if I put in UPRO, which is basically SPY times 3. It's a leverage ETF, into that list. And I wonder what the return would be like. So I went in, and you know, the cool thing about this is he actually created the strategy from a Composer template by the NASDAQ. So he didn't just start from scratch. He took the Composer strategy, the template, added to it. And then, like he said there, let's see if you guys can come up with anything and add to it and see what happens. So I went in and I added UPRO. Just out of curiosity, because it's SPY on steroids, basically. So you can see here, what I did is I copied the strategy and I added UPRO to all the 300, the 400, the 500, the 600. You know, and that's it. That's the only change I made in the strategy. And with Composer, what I want to do now is kind of show the results. So look at the results. The blue is, and I typed it Dippy QD version 2.6.7. That's when I created it. And I put UPro to remind myself that that's the edition. And you can see from 2012 to 2022, it's outperformed the original from a 39.9% annualized return to a 45.3. It's 489,995. So here we go. Here's the data from Composer, 45.3. Its Sharpe ratio. Now this is interesting, and this will take me to a Warren Buffett quotation. Now, many people in investing with modern portfolio theory and such might say that the original is the superior investment strategy because it has a higher Sharpe ratio, it has a lower standard deviation, it has a much lower max drawdown. In fact, its max drawdown is even lower than SPY. So using all these techniques, you're still having a lower max drawdown. Its Kalmar ratio is superior to both the permutation that I created and to SPY at 1.46. So many people would say, aha, this is the one that I want to invest in. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with looking at it that way. Maybe they're right technically. But I always think here of the Oracle of Omaha, and I'm going to just come here. And this is how I feel personally. This is, again, a personal statement. And it's because I can also deal with volatility. I mean, the drawdown here is 42. If the drawdown were 50 or 60, that doesn't bother me. Other people can't deal with volatility in the same way that I've been able to deal with volatility and just my nature. But Warren Buffett said here, he said, Buffett writes that earnings gyrations don't bother us in the least. After all, Charlie Munger and I would much rather earn a lumpy 15% over time than a smooth 12%. So when we go back here, this is a much lumpier return, even though it's higher. You're having more standard deviation, lower Sharpe, lower Kalmar, higher, tremendously higher max drawdown. But at the end of the day, here's why. Here's why I think that way, especially over the long term. So right here, now I put the same exact dates, January 2nd, 2012. So it's basically 10 years and 6 months or so. $489,995. Okay. Now the superior strategy from a Sharpe, a Kalmar, a standard deviation is going to be, let me just scroll up a little bit here, 330,983. 330,315. So that's a difference over 10 years of $159,011.85. I mean, first of all, both are absolutely tremendous. And that'll bring me to my next point that I want to make. But again, $159,000 difference. Again, you've dealt with higher standard deviation, greater drawdowns. But there are many academics, professors, and not just other investors, I guess, that would argue that this is a superior. I like the outperformance, even if it comes with a little bit more risk, a little bit more volatility. That 160,000, you could go and buy yourself, I don't know, a Ferrari with that if you wanted, if that's your thing. Or, it could be the down payment for a commercial real estate investment. And so you want to buy a $500,000-$600,000 investment property, there's your down payment. Whatever, you can talk, whatever you want to do with that extra 160,000, but it's there. It's there because you've dealt with a little bit more volatility along the way. But that kind of brings me to my other point. I mentioned this a lot, and it's a great point to make, I believe, that when you really study investing, when you're constantly reading books on financial education, I mentioned Nick Majuli book I'm reading now, and just have read many books. And I think Garen did a great video. He read like 50 books in financial education. You can see all the books behind me. Probably 1,000 books in this study here. Not all are in financial education investing, but the more and more you read about finance, financial education, and you look at profiles of the top investors. You look at like this George Soros, the David Tepper, the Warren and Charlie, the Monish Pabris, the so on and so forth. You understand that when you compound capital in that 20 to 30% range over the long term, over the 20, 30-year investing lifetime or investing career, Peter Lynch comes to mind on that too, with Fidelity. Even if you start with just $10,000, you end up with a lot of money. Okay. So what I'll do is I want to pull up a compound interest calculator to show that, and just to kind of to give you a sense of a truism that I've picked up from reading many, many books on investing is if you can compound in that 20 to 30% range, almost no matter where you start, you end up in a good place. To that point, Monish Pabri, who clones himself on Warren and Charlie at Berkshire, his license plate is Mr. 26%. And his aim is to get in that mid-20 investor return. Berkshire, I think, is at 22. Carl Icahn's at 29. Tepper's in the high 20s. Soros, when he was the Quantum Fund with Rogers in the high 20s, low 30s. Just to give you a sense, this is a compound interest calculator. You can kind of geek out with this. Again, you start with $10,000, which is not a lot of money. How much do people spend on college in America, and what do they get out of it? A lot of them, a lot of debt, not the greatest jobs, whatever. So, and they're 100,000 a year, but let's say 10,000, 30 years, 22%, you end up at $3.8 million. So let's just go and do like 29. Like I think that's Icahn and Tepper. Let me make sure I get the right number. $20 million. Now, that's with no dollar cost averaging. You do, I don't know, $1,000 a month, so you do a $12,000 monthly dollar cost over a 30-year working lifetime. You're 131 million. It's obscene, right? And so let's actually take this. Now, I did both of these, his original and mine. 39, let's just make sure I get it right here. It's 39, 45.3 on this one, okay? Annualized return, 39.9. So let's do 45.3, 39.9. So let's start 39. And again, it's not to say, I'm not even suggesting that this over the next 20 years is going to do this, but look, I'm just saying, just for the sake of showing the power of compound interest, let's just say it does it for the next 10 years, because it's done these returns for 10 years. If it does it for the next 10, you would turn 10,000 to 8.2 million. Okay. And if you do it another 10 years, so if you do it for the investing lifetime, 236 million. Wow. Look at that extra 10 years on the power of compounding. Okay. So now let's go back to 20. And again, I'm not suggesting that either of these two necessarily are going to do it. I'm just showing you that when you can compound in these levels, and again, they haven't even compounded. It's only really Jim Simmons, really, and the Medallion Fund that are, one of the few people that are on these levels long term. But let's just, 20 years, 45.3%, 17 million. Let's see 30 years. This is going to be obscene. Almost $1 billion, $737 million, 45.3%. It's with no dollar cost averaging. That's with $10,000, over an investing lifetime with these. So I just want to show it really there that and I want to say 39 to 45 will probably won't have, but even if you're in the 20s, 21, it's quite powerful. So what I want to do is just to now I went back, and I like to, when I make decisions, I like to go back the furthest. So if you were able to back test these, and you're not, because some of these are derivatives, leverage ETFs that weren't around, in 1990. But if you're able to back test this in some capacity, I actually paid a guy on Upwork to do UPRO, and you would use Yahoo Finance times 3 on SPY, and was able to give me some results and certain things. But if anyone is out there is able to do this in some capacity with the VIX and the UPRO and some of the other things, it would be a fascinating study. And maybe someone at AQR Capital, Cliff Asness and them could do it. I don't know who, someone could do this, but to back test something like this, to get a sense of, if you could go to 1990, 1970, 1980 and do it over 30, 40 years, would be phenomenal. But what I wanted to show here is, and that's my point. So many people, many of your peers, people you're going to listen to investment, even like myself or Warren Buffett. What does Warren Buffett say? Buy S&P 500 index and go home. Look at the difference between SPY, SPY, VOO, IVV, and these two strategies over the last 10 years. I mean, it's absolutely mind-blowing. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean that over the long term that this is going to continue, but it just shows, and in fact, it's a great segue here. I have different quotations related to finance that I've written, and people have, I put them in my description of my YouTube videos. People have quoted them, and actually, this is a quotation that a gentleman shared of mine, and I think it's so relevant to that graph I just showed you. If compound interest is indeed the eighth wonder of the world, then leverage compounding is certainly the 9th, 10th, and 11th. Many people, Albert Einstein and such, refer to compound interest as the eighth wonder of the world. So it's just kind of a play on that statement. And this gentleman here, Vardon Malvia, pop culture buff, writer, curator, creator, 19 years old, liked it and shared it. But I think that quotation was almost made for a graph like this. And it's not to say that you should buy these things, and again, that these things over the next 10 years are going to do that. But, again, someone put $10,000 in something like this 10 years ago. They have, 300 and some thousand, 400 and some thousand. But you can buy a house with that, or a significant down payment on a house. So that's that. And what I did, actually what I want to do before I get into what I did is I just want to show, and this will be interesting. I want to just to kind of update it. Again, the orange is the original, the blue is the permutation I created. 13. So it's 1 year. If you started 1 year later, it's still outperforming. So let's just go 14. And it gives it interesting, the closer we get to now. Okay, so now look at this. If you did it just 2 years later in 14 to 41, the original outperformed since 14, almost even here, 41.6 and 41.1. But again, look at the difference between SPY and these two over the last 10. This would be over the last 8 years and 6 months. Okay, so let's just keep doing this. Again, this is how I create symphonies, and it's good to do. You can I try to go back as far as I can, and then I go at like year by year. It's maybe a little tedious, but it's fun. I find it illuminating. And now you can see the original has significantly outperformed my permutation by a good 4 percentage points here or so. So that's why I want to do this. And you go 16 to a couple more here. Now, if you invested, it looks like in 16, wow, then it goes back to my permutation being ahead of the game. But I mean, you almost can't lose with either of these two over the last 10 years or 6 years. Let's just go to 3 years now, and then we'll go 1 year, and just to kind of see. Now, if you've only done it 3 years, though, the original trounces. Trounces. I mean, you're at a 98% annualized, 83.1 on the permutation with UPRO. But again, look at the massive, and again, I just keep repeating myself here, but it's just mind-boggling, the massive discrepancy between someone who's just buying a vanilla index fund. Not that there's anything wrong with them. I own a lot of vanilla index funds. I have most of my money in vanilla index funds, or a large portion of it. So, but when you use this, even if this is a certain percentage of your portfolio, I mean, it's just amazing to look at. And then we'll just do, that was a 3-year. We'll do 1 year. And obviously the last year, wow. You can see in the last year, I mean, this one is just like, it's way beyond 51.8 versus 15.2. So if you just like say came across this and invested in this one and this one in the last year or so, thinking that, or you invested in this one because you went back 12 years or 10 years and you're thinking this is a superior one, well, you have a surprise in store here because this one is done much better. So we'll see what the next 10 years is, and that's sort of what I wanted to get at here and play at the end of his video, which I did in my last video. I'm getting over 20 minutes. I don't want to keep it too long, but he said that he created some other symphonies. So I don't know if he's going to really push this channel and share these. I think he mentioned that he would. I put $1,000 into his original. I put $1,000 into my or $800 my permutation, but I'll top it up with the $200 to have $1,000 in that. And then if he has the 3 or 4 strategies that he alludes to here, I'd like to put 1,000 in to each. So maybe I have 4, 5, 6,000 these different strategies. And then now with Composer, we can then track these over the long term. And he mentions it here. Let me reduce my screen, and he just kind of shows the screenshot. So if he does share these, I will add 1,000 into each and track them over 10, 15, 20 years.
Tell you that you can make much better strategies than this. They will be riskier, but I can show you a few that I've built. I've got one here that actually does a 468 return with a beta of 0.85 and an alpha of 2.7. I've got another one that does 2.2 million with a very high beta. Unfortunately, I have one that does a 16 million with a beta that's actually lower and an annualized return of 112%. But these strategies are way more advanced than this simple YouTube video. If you like this video, then give it a like and share this.
So there you go. He kind of mentioned that. So we'll see if he does some videos on that, and then I'll be certainly transferring money from my checking, allocating the capital, and tracking, and we can kind of keep up on that. But that's it for today. I'm going to go back to my Jimmy Nardello peppers here and start my aglio e olio with pepper tonight. But any comments, questions, feel free to write in. Like and subscribe as always. Getting near that 2,000 range. I think I'm at 1,600, 1,700 subscribers. I'm building this channel back up. So appreciate all that. And yeah, take care, guys. Happy investing. Ciao.